Clear prop.
Star 73, Yankee number 2, following twin traffic, 3 mile final, clear Pleasantville. 1 Charlie Bravo, exit in runway 25, going 4 mile final.
This is Behind the Prop with United Flight Systems owner and licensed pilot Bobby Doss and his co-host, Major Airline Captain and Designated Pilot Examiner Wally Mulhern. Now let's go Behind the Prop.
What's up, Nick?
What's up, Bobby? How are you?
I'm good. Notice it's not Wally with me today. We got Nick, the voice of the podcast, with us. Wally is actually the examiner being evaluated today. But today's a really big show. I know Wally hates that he missed it. We have John and Martha King on the show, and we're going to talk about their new book, Lift. John and Martha, thanks for taking time to join the show.
Well, thank you very much, Bobby. And hello, folks. How you doing?
And hello, Nick. We're delighted to be on the show, and we're looking forward to having a lot of fun with both of you today.
Thank you so much. As we got connected, I told you both it's like we're talking to celebrities, or I feel like I'm also talking to a training video right now. This is amazing. I told you a long time ago when we first connected via email that I had a conversation with a gentleman. His name's Gary, and he actually flies at this flight school. He sat down with me and probably had that first conversation that many of us have with aviators. What do I do? How do I get started? What do I need to do to become a pilot? I want to fly my family around. And he said, go talk to United Flight Systems and download the King School's private pilot ground course and take it. And I took that screenshot on December 19th, 2014, and I've never looked back, obviously. I've gone from that first aerodynamics 4-minute video to owning a flight school. So I appreciate everything you've done for me personally. We are a Cessna Pilot Center. We sell Cessna kits probably daily around here, and hopefully helping your business continue to grow. So thanks for all you do for aviation.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. You know, when someone learns to fly, it changes who they are and how they feel about themselves forever. So it's a big change in your life when you learn to fly.
No doubt. It is a perishable skill, but one that I hope I won't let perish. That's for sure. So I saw the book come out, and I asked you both to be on the show because it is an interesting book. It is your first book, which I was kind of surprised by. I figured y'all had other books, but known for video. I like the books, not just about flying. It's about small business, entrepreneurship. The subtitle is How to Start, Run, and Grow Your Own Successful Business. And that's what I try to do every day. So definitely a different spin from probably what most think. You guys have a ton of history that I didn't know about. Let's talk about the fuel company first. Maybe the mistake that was made along the way that maybe others aren't familiar with. But share a little bit about the fuel company that you guys started and what might have gone wrong there.
We've been broke and not broke, and the way we got broke was this fuel company. And what we were doing is servicing fleets of trucks. So in the evening, so they didn't have to take time out of their working day to refuel the truck. And we also did lubrication services for trucks. And the idea was so that they didn't have to take time out of their working day so that they could just go right to work. And the owners really liked it. And we had about 50 franchises, and we were coast to coast, and it got to reasonably big. But one of the things that we say is you want to have a passion for what you're doing, because that passion helps you work longer and harder and enjoy it and persist through difficulty. And one of the difficulties we had is this was in the early 70s, and we had the OPEC oil embargo, which right now Saudi Arabia is talking about cutting back their production to raise prices, and that's what happened in that case. And it was an extreme situation where there were long lines at service stations, and service stations told their truck fleets, well, we're not going to sell fuel to you unless you get your service done at our place. And so our business and our business model was in crisis immediately. We had about 50 franchises, and the franchisees said, well, we're not going to pay you anymore because you're not helping us through this crisis. And so we lost our source of revenue, and we went bankrupt during that period. And we didn't have the passion that would make you persist and solve the problems and persist through difficulty. And so consequently, we went broke. So go ahead.
We were basically in this business because John's background, his family had owned a service station and oil distributorship. So it was what we knew. And I'm sure a lot of people end up in a business that's, well, it's what I know, kind of a thing, rather than something that they have a real passion for. So when we went bankrupt in this, we sat back and looked at each other and basically said, that really hurt. Let's not do that anymore. Let's go out and do something just for the fun of it until a serious business comes along that we really like. And while we were in this oil and lubrication business, we had learned to fly and were doing a lot of flying, had worked ourselves up from the Cherokee 140 that we learned to fly in up to a twin Comanche. And possibly one of the reasons that we went broke is we were out flying too much. But we lost the twin Comanche in the bankruptcy, of course. But we looked at each other and said, we've really got a passion for aviation. We knew that for sure. And maybe we can find something related to that. And I found an ad in Trade a Plane where Ross Ground Schools in Tulsa, Oklahoma was looking for ground instructors. And John and I went out and very quickly got our commercial certificates. We were private with instrument ratings and multi-engine ratings at the time. We got our commercial certificates and we got our advanced and instrument ground instructor and applied for a job with them and got it, and ended up teaching 2-day weekend ground school courses for them based in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And the manager of that business said, well, I have a goal, and my goal is to have, I think I can have, what was it, 10 teams of
10
instructors?
teams of instructors.
And that's easy to do. All you have to do is hire 10 teams of instructors. She forgot to say profitable. I'd like 10 profitable teams of instructors. She didn't say that. She had 10 teams of instructors, and the sales weren't enough. And one day we got a phone call and I said, we need to tell you we're closing the business down. And all of a sudden they closed that business down, and Martha and I are looking and said, well, we're out of jobs. And so we said, what are we going to do? And so, well, we really like teaching ground schools. That was a lot of fun. Why don't we set up our own business teaching ground schools? And so what we did is we picked places in the country like North Dakota, South Dakota, where there are a lot of distances between airports, and decided we'd teach weekend ground schools. We'd set up a hotel in a place like Billings, Montana, and a lot of the people that were going to these to learning to fly in those areas were ranchers or ranch workers, and they lived out in remote ranch towns, small little towns, and had to drive into towns to take ground school. And ground school was, what would you say?
Like 2 nights a week for 8 or 10 weeks. And so
they're driving back and forth through the plains to get to Billings, Montana to take their ground school. And there's a lot of driving.
Maybe 60 miles, 100 miles, sometimes big distances in that part of the country.
So in places like that, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, we said, we'll pick a city and we'll get one of these hotels that has swimming pools and party areas, and we'll set up a weekend ground school in that hotel, and you just have to drive once. You get to that hotel, and we'll get you your written pass over the weekend. And so we had lots of people come into these hotels. We did very well. We picked something that served our customers well, and we did a good job of them. And so we had the FAA come in. We'd teach. Martha would be in one classroom teaching instrument instructors, and I'd be in another classroom teaching private, commercial, and flight instructor. And we'd teach Saturday and Sunday, and on Monday the FAA would come and give the written exam, and people would get their certificate done in the weekend, or their knowledge test done in a weekend. And it worked, and we did it, and we did it 50 weekends a year, and
for about 10 years.
For about 10 years. So.
Wow.
So we taught in that parent period, each of us taught in our own specialties 500 courses. And at about the end of the 10 years, what happened is that video came along, and someone said to us, well, you should put your courses on video. And I said, well, that goes to show you don't know one thing about our business, because it won't work on video. I said, it requires our personal dynamic presence to work. And what we were doing, we had developed ways to help people remember things. We had developed all our words that we use to help people remember stuff, acronyms and so on, and jokes. So you get in, if you want to illustrate something and make sure people remember it, you tell a joke about it, and then they would remember it. And so we did all of that. And we thought our dynamic presence is what made the difference, and it wouldn't work on video. And so the guy says, I don't know how you can say that if you haven't tried it. I mean, how would you know? And so we put it on video once, and it apparently worked. And so we wound up in a very short period of time teaching about half the pilots in the country learning to fly. The other thing we learned, we little things that you know more about than other people, we call Scrabble letters. That's another one of those words we make up. And we had the Scrabble letter of how to do direct marketing. And we had learned that, became students of direct marketing. And when we were teaching the weekend ground schools, a lot of our classes grow to the point where we had about 100 people in the classes. And when we were mailing out to all the flight instructors in the country, we wound up mailing to every flight instructor in the country. And
to sell the courses. And we sold a lot of them. And they taught their students using our courses.
The direct marketing stuff that y'all did was obviously game changing for your business, and I think
learning how to sell. When I was a kid, I was, as you can tell, I was glib and a big talker. And so when I was about 14 years old, my mom and dad sent me off to a dealer training school for Texaco dealers. And as he sent me off, he said, John, none of these guys want to know a 14-year-old's opinion. Keep your mouth shut and learn how to sell. And I came back and I knew how to sell. And I came back and sold lubrications and oil changes on our driveway. We had a gas station and a country restaurant. And I was very effective, and we wound up having to hire people because I was selling so much as a 14-year-old. So one of the things that helped me is I put this glib personality to a use, and I learned how to sell. And Martha and I became students of direct marketing. So knowing how to sell stuff either by talking directly to someone or on paper really worked for us.
Boy, has it ever. And you say 50%. I got to think it's higher than that for sure, because maybe people haven't bought the course, but they've definitely learned something from you both through some sort of a web-based training, or they've seen a seminar or heard a podcast like this. So I bet you've touched a lot more than 50% of the pilots that are out there for sure.
Well, we probably have, but it sounds like bragging.
But I'd like to back up, if you will, briefly to the transition between our oil and lubrication business to being in the ground school business. And there's a couple of things that we feel were very significant takeaways from our failure, the bankruptcy, and from the failure of the ground school company that we went to work for before we started our own. And the first one with our bankruptcy was failure is wasted unless you take responsibility for it. If you don't look honestly at a failure and analyze why you failed and figure out in what ways what you did caused that failure, then you're failing to take responsibility for it, and therefore you're failing to learn from it where you can do something new and different. One of our big failures with the oil and gas business is we didn't structure the business well, in the sense of having you might call it a lever. We we didn't have enough of a value proposition and or a legal lever to keep ourselves in control of the franchisees when hard times came.
We couldn't enforce the agreement.
Couldn't enforce the agreement. And we didn't have enough value added that they wanted, the franchisees wanted to work through ways to help stay in the agreement. And that was our fault, because we're the ones that designed the program, designed the business, designed the relationship and the contracts. And we did a lot of soul searching about that to learn from it. And the second thing we learned working for Ross Ground Schools, and we only worked for them 3.5 months before they went bankrupt, was, or shut the business down, was be careful of what you set for your goals. They were a prime example of defective goal setting, as was ours goal setting in the oil and gas business. We wanted to have 50 franchisees. We wanted to be a nationwide company. We got the 50 franchisees, we were nationwide, but it still wasn't a significantly sound and profitable operation. The ground school business we worked for, Ross Ground Schools, their goal was 10 teams of instructors out on the road every week. They got that without any problem. As John said, all you have to do is hire people, but they forgot, as John said, to say profitable teams. So they also had significantly defective goal setting. So
that's what you wish for, you might get it.
Correct.
Martha, that's kind of a lesson on beyond business that transcends business, about looking at your failure and looking inward and what could I have done differently. How many people do you hear they mess something up or they lose a job and they're blaming everybody else, they're blaming the boss? But I think that's some really brilliant stuff right there about looking inward and what could I have done differently, and that's what you guys did.
Well, there's a lot of crossovers between being an entrepreneur and living life.
Yes.
Boy, there sure are.
Martha and I were young when we got married. I was 19. I was 21. She was 19. And we set a goal that we would be equal partners in everything we would do. And so we decided that we needed to be entrepreneurs because it wasn't likely that General Motors would hire us as equal partners. So we felt that we had to be entrepreneurs to live the life that we wanted to live. And so we did. That's how we became entrepreneurs, and that's why we're entrepreneurs. And I want to make it clear, Martha's only a little bit better pilot than I am, and a little bit better at everything we do. You know, she's on the video, and when we did the classroom, she did one set of classrooms, I did the other set of classrooms.
We have a great partnership, and I think that has been an important part of our success, because we have, as intellectual partners, been able to bounce ideas off of each other and help flesh out ideas and make sure that that new things that we get into are realistic and that we've looked at them very carefully. An interesting side thought somewhat here is that one of the things we encourage in the company, we've read a lot of books about business and how to run them better, how to be a better entrepreneur and so on. And one of the things we've adopted is, in order to get a free exchange of ideas and really honest opinions among our fellow employees at King Schools about what they think about a new proposal or modifications, is the concept of someone wearing the black hat. And that makes it, someone can say, okay, I'm going to put a black hat on here, and they can talk against the idea and point out all the problems and so on, without anyone assuming that they're actually against the idea, just that they're using the black hat role to make sure that we've analyzed the pitfalls and the problems that could come up and the pushback that we're likely to get from the community, from our customers, even from our own employees. And so we've tried very hard to promote discussion and openness, so that people can tell us when we're messing up and when we're doing something that just isn't going to work, no matter what level in the company they are.
Martha is demonstrating that we are students of entrepreneurship and that we have been studying small business ever since we've started in the business. And we have a passion for that as well. And she's demonstrating that passion for us.
No doubt. That's very obvious in the book, too. And as I mentioned, that I found it refreshing that the book was a book about entrepreneurship. And you guys have definitely lived through all those experiences. There's a million subtitles in the book, but the ones that's jumped out at me on the pages was about customers. And if you guys didn't care about customers, then you wouldn't have been able to build the business that you built. I'm a huge fan of one of your subtitles, which talks about raving fans aren't just customers. And I would like to think that most of the students at United Flight Systems, at this little small big flight school in Houston, Texas, are raving fans. They're going out and they're screaming about what we're doing that's a little different, a little better, and it's refreshing to have raving fans. Nick is a raving fan. He's a student pilot at this school and became a raving fan early on as well. So
you're changing lives. That's
one of the advantages that we have is, as we said, we taught classes 50 weekends a year for about 10 years, and we were face to face in the room every weekend with people who passionately wanted to either learn to fly or upgrade their ratings and certificates, who were passionate about aviation, people that we went to parties in the evening with, people who became very long-term friends. We went to their kids' weddings. We knew them well. We knew what motivated them. We knew what areas they had trouble with, and we cared about how they did and what their experience was like in learning to fly. And we wanted to make it a better experience for them and not just something that they had to slog and suffer through on the path to becoming a pilot. And that gave us a lot of incentive to keep working on all the little gears and cogs and procedures and everything in the company as we grew to, I guess you could say, minimize the friction between the company and our customers, to make it a very pleasant, non-bureaucratic, personal connection with them, so that the whole learning to fly process became fun instead of painful.
we used to use the term customer service, and we quit using that term, customer service as a goal. We want it to be the customer experience, and we want the whole experience they have when they learn to fly to be a good experience. And it's our job to see that they have that good experience. And it's a little bit more complicated than just customer service. It's managing the whole situation. So that's
which basically is what Raving Fans, the book you mentioned, Bobby, talks about and works on, is that you don't just want to solve problems when they arise. You want to create a total experience where there aren't problems and where people just feel fantastic.
No question. And I think the neat part about the book is also that you create your business model, and not every customer is going to fit that business model. So clearly you've probably done that. You two probably wouldn't go teach at a Holiday Inn somewhere this weekend. That's the old business model, and you've evolved from that. And that's important to understand. If someone wants that in person in Billings, Montana today, they're not going to get it from John and Martha King. I will rewind. I noticed you said 50% partners or 50% everything you did. I did notice that Martha finally got her name in the front of this book. The Library of Congress, it's cataloged as King Martha and King John Arthur. So I finally see you got in front there, Martha. I can appreciate that.
Real quick, Bobby, if you don't mind, this is a little silly, but I don't know if you guys know this. One of the most Googled questions, if you look John and Martha King up on Google, is when you fly together, who flies left seat and who flies right seat?
well,
we swap
more than half the time. Martha's the captain, and I'm
okay.
And Martha, and this line I have that Martha's only a little bit better pilot than I am. It's probably not true, because she's a lot better pilot than I am. And what makes her a better pilot? She's equal to me on physical skills. She does really fine on crosswind landings, those kinds of things. But she's way ahead of the airplane. She knows. Normally I'm going along. Well, what the hell just happened? And Martha says, well, this is about to happen and that's about to happen. She's way ahead of the airplane and knows what's about to happen. And I'm trying to figure out what just happened. And so that's the difference. She's a good risk manager. She anticipates and identifies and mitigates risk before they ever happen.
That makes a great pilot. So you talked about your black hat, and I like that analogy, it's something physical y'all implement. But if they wore the black hat and they told y'all it was a bad idea or something wasn't working, and then you snipped them or you fired them because they said something, then they wouldn't ever put the black hat on. So there's something you're doing with employees to make them also feel comfortable, meaning you're encouraging that, you're hearing them out, and you're making some adjustments. But having 70 employees is hard. Having 30, I have 30 here. People are hard.
When the company hires a new employee, Martha and I go seek out that employee and we say to them, let us explain our obligations to you. And we tell that new employee, it's our obligation to provide you meaningful and rewarding work in an atmosphere of civility and respect. And when we talk about meaningful and rewarding work, it's got to be meaningful to you, not to us, but to you, and rewarding to you. And we need to design your job so it's meaningful and rewarding to you. And we need to create the entire environment that is civility and respect. And that's not that easy. You get people who want to play games and get ahead and be in charge of more than they should and all of those kinds of things, and are not so civil and respectful. So that's our job. That's our job, to create that environment and to give them meaningful and rewarding work. And if people have work that's meaningful and rewarding to them, what kind of job are they going to do? They're going to do a great job, because they know they're making a difference and it's meaningful and rewarding to them. So it's our job to design that.
One of the things that when somebody puts the black hat on, we talk about is disagreement or a different opinion on things is fine. We want to hear it as long as it's logical and it's not just emotion driven, and it's civil and respectful and respects the expertise of the other employees that are in that discussion and what the other people bring to the decision in terms of their background and their knowledge.
We ought to, one of the things that's important to us is entrepreneurship. And one of the things the general community doesn't understand about entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs get ahead by seeking out and taking care of other people's needs. For instance, you think about your customers and you think about their needs, because if you weren't satisfying the customer's needs, why would they buy from you? So you spend a lot of time thinking about your customers. You also think similarly about the people who work for you. You think about their needs, or else why would they work for you? So you're seeking out, taking care of their needs. And a third group that's counterintuitive, but your vendors. You seek out and take care of the needs of your vendors, because otherwise, why would they be dealing with you? And it pays off. It pays off everywhere along the line. Is that you're what we call other focused all the time. I'll tell you something silly we do, and that is silly. Have I ever written you an email, Bobby?
Yes, sir.
Have you got it in front of you?
I do.
Can you find it?
I can, yes, sir.
No, take a look at it. I'd like to ask you a question about it.
Well, can I say something that I think maybe what you're going to say? Because I recognize something that both of you do that I told some other people about before we had this show set up. I said, you guys, in every email you've sent me, start with a positive comment about me, and I knew it from the very, very beginning.
You're one of the rare people, Bobby, who recognize that. For other people, they're just pleased, but they don't exactly know why. And it's because we're trying to think about, why do you care about an email that we're writing to you? What can we say to you or about you that is relevant to what your needs and your wants are, before we get around to talking about anything
It's
else.
a stupid formulaic rule, but we have a rule that when we write among ourselves or to anybody else, the first word in the communication is you. And it has to be about you. And I say it's stupid and formulaic, but what it does, it makes you sit down
It
and
makes the writer sit down.
before you ask yourself, what can I say about this person? The communication ought to be about them. So how do I make it about them, and what can I say about them? And that works. We call that being other-centered. It's not all about a word we can never start a letter with is the word I. We just can't do that. That's not what we're supposed to do. And we're trying to get that into the culture of the company. And when a person sees that, very often when they write me a letter, it always starts with the word you. People pick up on it, but it works. It really works. And a lot of times people know they like receiving letters from us, but they don't know why. It's because we're talking about them. And that's what we should do with our customers and our vendors. One of our vendors is the people who print our catalog. And one of the problems that the whole country is going through right now is we're running out of paper. And the catalog printer and the paper supplier had to make a choice who they were going to give that paper to, whose catalog
We're going to keep as customers.
And our vendors called us up and said, we want you to know we're in a crisis, but we're going to give you're going to get your paper, you're going to get your catalog out, and because you're our customer that pays the most attention to us and does best by us. And so seeking out and taking care of the needs of your vendors pays off. It just pays off.
I love hearing that. I'm not trying to just jump on every coattail of everything you're saying, but I preach that around here a lot too, because the fuel guy that's delivering fuel needs to be thankful. He needs to know we're thankful that he or she's bringing the fuel and putting it in our planes. The dealer that's selling us a switch or a wire or anything else needs to know that we care about them. If we can pay them faster and better and not impact ourselves, it makes everything work better. And I gotta say that reading the book, it touched a lot of the things that I do believe in, and I think it's really, really good content for people to read and listen. The vendors and partners, I think, get a little bit less credit in most other entrepreneurial books because they're trying to get the business to get ahead. And really, a business can't get ahead without all those vendors and partners. There's just no way.
We had a printer who printed our direct mail pieces one time, had a fire, and he lost a lot of stuff in a fire. And Martha and I went down to him and paid for the next 6 months worth of mailing pieces in advance. And it let him keep his business going. And
gave him the money to get a new press and to rebuild the area that was damaged by the fire. And as John says, it allowed him to stay in business when he otherwise would not have. And that was good for him, but it was also very good for us.
Oh, was he ever loyal after that?
That's what partners do.
Yeah,
yes.
We had another guy who was back in the early days when we were doing videotape, who was duplicating our videotapes. And we had a schedule that we wanted the tapes out by, and he wasn't meeting that schedule, and tapes weren't getting out in time. And videotape was a very difficult medium because we had semi trucks of videotapes come in, we'd put the message on them, semi trucks of them would go out, and it took a lot of people and so on. So we went down to him one day and explained to this guy, I'm thinking Bob Wright, that how important it was that we provided our service to the customers on the schedule that we had promised to our customers, and we made our promises. And we went down several times to explain it to him, and he wasn't able to make it. And one time after one of these sessions, his wife called us up and said, "Can you take Bob to the hospital? I think he's having a heart attack." And Martha and I said, "You know what? We got to do this differently. Bob, we're getting to him. He hears us. He's just not able to do it, and we don't want to kill him." So one day we went to Bob and we said, "Look, I know that you're in all of these machines. There were hundreds of them, machines on lease, and you bought them in a very expensive a way
To do our tapes.
to do our tapes. We're going to take your investment. We're going to return your investment to you, buy your machines, and we'll operate them ourselves. And so we got his lousy leases, we got his expensive, paid too much for the machines, and we got them and operated it ourselves and did it. And we were able to make it on time. But our idea was, he's hearing us. What we say matters. He just can't do it, and he winds up having a heart attack after we leave.
It's terrible.
So the kind thing was do is quit beating up on Bob. I mean, it wasn't going to get the result.
But that's what passionate people do too. Is you go take a piece of the whatever's not working in the string of cogs and gears, and you go fix it, and you'll operate your own videotape machines and duplicate
Yes,
tapes.
but you have to fix it with an understanding of what you owe to everyone involved. In this case, to the vendor. In some cases, it might be to an employee. And we've had a number of cases where at King Schools where we've had an employee who hasn't been functioning properly in the job that they were hired for, but we have looked around and studied them and their skills and their personality a little bit more, and created a different job, moved them into a new job that fit them, and also contributed considerable value to the company. But the important thing to do it always is with consideration and respect.
And kindness.
Yes.
Yeah. We're trying to create an environment, a whole environment of the company of civility and respect. And so you have to devote yourself to that. You have to spend time on it. I'm sorry, we took over.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Speaking of that, communication is probably the one thing that I say we struggle with the most here at this flight school. If something's not going right, it's because somebody didn't communicate it right. You guys know how hard that is for everybody to get the same message. It's a constant effort by me and my leadership team to make sure we're all saying the same things and doing the same things and supporting in the same way. But it doesn't take much for that to go off the rails. And future entrepreneurs that are going to go buy your book and learn from it, they really got to understand that communication is at the heart of what leaders do inside of a small business.
One of the reasons that we think there's two things when people ask us why we're still eating well after so many years in this business. And there's two things we tell them, and one is technology. We've stayed up with the technology, going from actually blackboards to overhead projectors to videotape, CDs, DVDs, and then online. But the second one, and perhaps more important or equally important for sure, is listening to our feedback. In every course that we've done from the very beginning, we have always had a feedback mechanism for our customers to tell us what they think about the program that they received and what they think we could do better or differently to make it a better experience for them.
So soliciting feedback and being responsive to it is a very important piece of why we're still eating regularly.
And one of the things we do at King Schools is that feedback doesn't just go to the manager of that department or even to all of upper management. It goes to everybody in the company, including the guys on the shipping floor, the guys out in the warehouses. I don't know if they all read it, but they have the opportunity to, if they want to, so that they know what's going on and they know how what their work does affects the customers, and they know what the complaints, when there are complaints, are, and can make their suggestions about how that might be improved.
And that's a form of communication. We also, for instance, we do, if there's a partner we have in a course or an operation, these customer responses go to that partner before we've even read them. We don't have a chance to edit them or anything.
For instance, the Cessna courses, Bobby, when we get feedback from them at the same time that it goes to everybody in the company, it also goes to the Cessna folks, the CPC folks at Cessna, at Textron Aviation. And we have the flight instructor a renewal course.
Yeah, flight instructor refresher course.
And that's FAA approved. And at the same time that we get feedback on that from our customers, it goes to our local principal operations inspector, and it also goes to the guy in Washington, D.C., who gave the initial, who gives the overall approval to the syllabus and the course. So everybody is getting it all at the same time.
So if somebody says this is the worst course I've ever taken, that goes to the FAA right away. It goes to us and it goes to the FAA right away. We don't even have the opportunity to change it because it goes out in the same feed to everybody. And it gives us a lot of incentive to improve.
Well, that level of transparency has got to be part of what's made you guys and King Schools very, very successful. Nick, I know you had a couple of questions. I'll let you ask a couple of questions now.
Yeah, I guess just hearing how much you guys enjoy the business side of building your brand as you have over the last several decades. One thing I thought was cool, I'm an avid Microsoft Flight Sim guy, and I believe it was sometime around the 2000 version, you guys got the opportunity to do the flight instruction in Microsoft Flight Simulator. How did you wind up with a gig like that? That is so cool.
When they started Microsoft Flight Simulator, people would get it, load it, and they fly it 2 or 3 times and crash and put it back in the box and put it away. And so Microsoft came to us and said that people aren't staying with the program as much as we'd like. Do you think you could create a video that they could play that would help them stay with the program and so that they wouldn't quit? We said, yeah, we think we can do that. So we created that video, and Microsoft was at King Schools when we did it, and it was all collaborative. And what we did is we had John sitting at a desk, and John opens it and starts playing with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Martha's standing over my shoulder, and I'm doing all sorts of stupid things. And so
I'm figure out how to do this or how to do
and I'm doing that. Martha's standing over my shoulder, and she says, John, if you had read the instructions, you would know that here's what you do right now. And so it's the whole thing is John doing this and Martha standing over there. And so, look, John, why don't you? And so she's criticizing me the whole time. And it's a great back and forth. We're going back and forth.
Really
it's very funny. And it worked. And so they stayed with it. And so ultimately what happened is when you bought Microsoft Flight Simulator and installed it, the very first thing you saw was a picture of John and Martha.
Wow.
And because they wanted them to take that video because the video kept people with the program. And it really worked, and it was funny, and we do funny. I mean,
yeah.
And John does stupid, and Martha does correcting.
A number of the people involved with Microsoft, I don't have the technical name in my brain anymore, but basically Microsoft Studios, where they produced Flight Simulator, were pilots, and so they knew about us and knew about our videos and thought we might be able to do this. And it was very effective. And in fact, when we flew our old Falcon 10 around the world in 2004 through Russia, and we kept meeting people in Russia who recognized us from Flight Sim. And that was kind of cool.
Same thing happened in China as well.
Yes.
Wow.
We have a video they created. They took our little skit together and converted it into 7 languages, and it went all over the world. So
localization, they called it.
Yeah, wherever they sold Microsoft Flight Simulator, they translated it to that country's language. And so there was, I think, 7 of them. And the funny thing was, it was funny in Spanish, it was funny in French. And the thing that was really funny is it wasn't funny in German. Martha's a little too stern in German.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you talk about those stories of being recognized from Microsoft Flight Sim. That kind of segues into one of my other questions, which was going to be, you guys must have countless stories. As Bobby said, conservatively, 50% of pilots have taken some sort of training with you guys. We think it's a lot more than that. You must have a favorite story, each of you, of a time where you're getting on a 777 to go overseas and the captain comes back and says, "Are you Martha and John King from the videos?" Do you guys have anything like that?
All the time. It also happens on ATC. This controller will ask.
Okay.
Martha. And the other day we had a deal. What was it? We were in the middle of an urgent situation in the airplane, and the guy
And
said,
somebody called on the
"Is this John and Martha?" I said, "We're pretty busy right now." The airplane had depressurized, and we were at 36,000 feet, and we're on our way down. And we're talking on our way down, and this guy says, "Is this John and Martha King?" I said, "We're pretty busy right now."
Oh my
We'll
goodness,
chat-
that's
We'll
crazy.
chat below 14,000.
Right.
So, but we don't. Being famous is fun, but that's about all it is. It's not a contribution to anybody. It doesn't help anybody else. And if our job is to do good things for other people, it doesn't do anything for them. I guess it gives them satisfaction. And in a sense, we tend to downplay it, and we take the satisfaction of saying, well, I met John and Martha King away from someone. And so we're rethinking about how we handle people recognizing us.
Well, we try to make a big deal out of them and find out what they're doing, where they are in their flying, and what's up next for them, and so on. We work very hard at, as we said earlier, being other-centered, so that they get the satisfaction of having talked to us without feeling that we just talked at them without really finding out anything about them. It's actually much more rewarding for us that way also.
Oh, it is. When you become recognized by people that you don't know, it's very confusing and disorienting. You don't know how to do it, and there's no place to take training on how to respond to people who recognize you and think you're famous. And
the next new course from the King Schools was just announced right here on this podcast.
So one time we're out in a kind of an aviation beach party, and this guy's drunk, and he comes up to Martha, and he wants Martha to respond to him, and Martha tries to retreat and get away from the guy, and that really made him mad. I mean, it really made him mad. And so he starts really pushing after Martha, and it really made him mad that Martha wasn't responding to him. And so when we got away from that, we said, that didn't work. That was bad. And so we decided we're going to have to do something different. And so we have a friend that knows Bill Clinton, and he said Bill Clinton, when he meets someone, grabs them by the hand, pulls them towards them,
very close,
looks them in the eye, and devotes about 5 minutes just intensely to that person. And when you get done, he's put out a lot of energy, but you feel like you're a buddy of Bill Clinton. And
wow.
So we decided that's what we're going to have to do. So when we meet someone, and it's sometimes if you're trying to get something done, you're in the middle of something, but we do that, whether it's in person or over the air with, hi, how you know? What do you know? What do you fly? How long have you been flying? What do you like about flying? We interview them.
What got you interested in it,
Right. So if someone comes up to us, we try and grab them by the hand, pull them towards us, look them in the eye, and have a conversation about them. And if you're at Oshkosh, we can't walk from one place to the other without having to do that all the time. And it's very, very impractical, very inefficient, very exhausting. We come away from Oshkosh and almost crawl because we're so exhausted.
But it's so totally memorable to them, and so important to them, that in spite of the fatigue, it's very rewarding.
And I don't like this conversation because it makes it sound like we think we're important. And it's not other-centered. So we want to be. It
really doesn't. It doesn't. I hear your passion for other people. I hear your passion for what you've done, and obviously that passion has made you successful. So successful that you guys have some applications, I believe, are opening right now for some of your scholarships. You want to share a little bit about that with our listeners?
Yes, we started in 2016 with a scholarship that we give for female flight instructors or for female pilots who already have their commercial and instrument rating and want to become a flight instructor through Women in Aviation, as I said. And we've been doing that one for 7 years. This year, applications are open now, and this will be our 8th year of doing it for female flight instructors or wannabe instructors through Women in Aviation. And shortly after that, we started a joint a scholarship, male or female, doesn't matter, through NAFI, the National Association of Flight Instructors, and that is also open. These are for the 2023 scholarships that we're giving. And we give away $5,000 in cash plus lifetime access to all of the King Schools courses. And that totals up to around $20,000 if you count the value. If you count the value of the courses along with the cash that we give. And we have met some truly wonderful people through these scholarships. One of the people you've probably seen on CNN talking about aviation is Pete Muntean, and he was a NAFI scholarship winner for his flight instructor, and has gone on to do a lot of aviation related stuff, which is wonderful because he brings a very knowledgeable voice to the general media about aviation. And what we wanted to do was reach out and help people become flight instructors that we felt could communicate well with the aviation community, and hopefully also to the general community and media beyond.
If you ever want to do something that's fun, consider giving away a scholarship. The people you meet come back and contact you all the rest of their lives and tell you how well they're doing. We just got a message from Sarah Tamar, Tamar. When we gave her the scholarship, she was flying caravans on floats for tourism. She was taking in New York City area. And, you know,
flying people from a seaport on Manhattan Island out to Long Island and up to Martha's Vineyard area for basically it was a shuttle for people to get there because the traffic's pretty bad there. And she is this week starting her G4 type rating course.
She got a job flying a G4. And so this is a young gal, about 22 years old. And you know, who are you going, if you're going to have a bunch of people that are candidates to be a pilot in your company flying G4s, who would you pick? Would you pick the best pilot? No, you'd pick someone you would like to sit beside for hours. And that's who's going to be with you. And she is really personable, really looks other people in the eye and talks about them. And she's really good at that. And the first thing she did when she got that job was send us a message saying, I just got hired as a G4 pilot. And what a pleasure it is to have played a role in her life. That is a great pleasure.
So we're looking forward very much to the next crop of applicants for both the NAFI scholarship and the WAI scholarship. And there's links on our homepage at kingschools.com where they can find the applications for each of those.
So you had talked about, we can talk about philanthropy. That's our idea of philanthropy. And boy, is it fun. It's very personal.
That is awesome.
And it affects them individually, changes them, will change them forever. I mean, this being a Gulfstream G4 pilot will help Sarah for the rest of her life.
Yeah, and it's not a cheap hobby / profession to get into. So I'm sure every dollar helps, and every video that you make available helps as well. So I'm sure everybody appreciates that. And I guess to wrap up, I'll say the book was a really good book. I got through the whole thing, and I appreciated all the content, the customer service focus, the working with partners, and then being passionate about aviation. That doesn't hurt for me to sit through a book where you guys had some successes and some failures along the way, and we're very candid sharing those. If you come through Houston anytime soon, let me know, and I'll make my way to any airport to shake your hands and say thanks for being on our show. We'll put all the links to scholarships and other things in the show notes for our listeners as well. And if you happen to buy their book, give them a review on Amazon or wherever you procure that book, and let them know you heard about it on Behind the Prop. That would help us as well. Nick, anything to wrap with?
No, I'll listen for you guys in the air. I'm a controller at Houston Center. Is it still the Falcon you guys are flying?
Yeah, let's hope we're not screwing up when you.
Thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you today.
Thank you,
It's
guys.
been a lot of fun.
Well, you made
Thank
it
you.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And to our listeners, as always, fly safely and stay behind the prop.
And folks, stay out of the trees.
Thanks for checking out the Behind the Prop podcast. Be sure to click subscribe and check us out online at BehindTheProp.com. Behind the Prop is recorded in Houston, Texas. Creator and host is Bobby Doss. Co-host is Wally Mulhern. The show is for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to replace actual flight instruction. Thanks for listening, and remember, fly safe.